Thank you all for coming back in after the breakout sessions, and thank you to Dr. Smith and Jay and Meg and the AV team. I've sent them multiple revisions of my presentation, but thank you again for coming back. Again, I'm Jonathan Kaplan, plastic surgeon in San Francisco, and today I'm going to talk to you why you should think like a plastic surgeon and combine price transparency with lead generation. A quick disclaimer, as Jonathan mentioned, I'm founder and CEO of Build My Bod Health. I'll be referring to that price transparency platform later on. And quick, we'll start off with some audience participation. So how many of you list pricing on your website? Raise your hand for yes, and raise your hand for no. All right, so not surprising. Clearly the FMMA understands the importance of price transparency and why pricing is important. But what I want to talk to you today about is there's an extra piece to the puzzle that I really think that will be very useful, and you'll find this kind of interesting, maybe revolutionary, and certainly keep you up for this afternoon. You're not going to fall asleep. Hopefully I won't see any yawns in the audience. So one of the things that I found that I can really kind of provide to you some insight is that, you know, as a plastic surgeon, we're seeing things that maybe you're starting to see now. And in the background, you know, as more healthcare services are being paid out of pocket, obviously, due to more patients getting high deductible health plans. And that has three effects: that patients are more price sensitive, they now have a choice even going out of network, and thirdly, that provider success is now more dependent on obtaining those cash pay patients than ever before. Now, if you look at all three of these, plastic surgeons have been dealing with this for decades. And so because of that, I feel like I have a little something that I can offer you today. Because if you think about patients, you know, cosmetic plastic surgery patients, they're paying out of pocket for those cosmetic procedures. They have a choice. The ER is not referring me cosmetic patients. Other doctors aren't referring me cosmetic patients. They have a choice. And along with my colleagues, we had to find a better way to capture those patients that had choice and were paying out of pocket and they were price sensitive. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about today is the benefits of using price transparency as a tool for generating leads. So one of the foremost benefits of this is that the patients receive the pricing information they're searching for, and that's what a lot of you are already doing. But then using price transparency as a lead generation tool, you can actually capture contact information for follow-up, which maybe you're not doing. And then, of course, in that process, you're passively building a huge database of cash pay patients. And I'm going to show you how this works. And how do I know it works? Well, let me tell you a little story. I practiced in Baton Rouge, Louisiana for 6 years. My wife and I moved to San Francisco 4 years ago. And I took over an existing plastic surgery practice. He only had 200 email addresses in his database. He did have a website, no discernible SEO traction. And after 4 years, I've grown my email database from 200 to over 7,000 email addresses, actually over 7,100 email addresses. So how did I do it? Well, when you're building a database, you don't want to just buy a list, because one, the lists are probably expensive, you don't know if the email addresses are any good, and you don't even know if those people are interested in the services that you provide. You want consumers that are genuinely interested in what you're offering. So how do you do that? Well, you have to decide what's going to be your carrot to generate as many leads as possible for your practice or your facility. And I have found that there is no stronger incentive for a consumer to provide their contact information than the promise of offering them pricing information. There's just nothing else that'll do it. Maybe you can offer to sell a car, to give a car away if people give their contact information, but then at that point, you're getting people who are interested in the car, not interested in your services. So pricing information really encourages people to leave their contact information on your website. So what I did is I included a procedure pricing widget in my website with a list of all of my offered services. So the first question is, what's a widget? Well, what I did is I uploaded all of my procedures and pricing up into the cloud, up into a database. It wasn't very user-friendly. So then with the help of a web developer, I put a little bit of code into my existing website, and then we were able to then import all of those procedures into my existing website in a nice user-friendly format. Let me show you what that looks like. This is my website, Pacific Heights Plastic Surgery. Consumer comes to my website, they'll see the pricing tab or the Get a Quote Now button, and then they'll scroll down and they'll see this widget that I'm talking about. It's nice and user-friendly. They can see procedures, services, they can switch between male or female, then they can scroll down, look at all the different procedures that I offer. And then they can even share the link with a friend, bring them back to that procedure so they can, maybe they're both considering a procedure. And you can dive into that procedure and read about it, watch a video without having me redirected to YouTube. They can see how I do my eyelid lift, whether I do it under local or not. They can look at my before and after photos. But most importantly, they're eventually going to want to know how much it costs. So they can add this to their wish list, but then they don't see any pricing just yet. They have to submit the wish list, and this is how we capture their contact information. They created a free account with their name, email address, phone number, zip code, log into that free account, submit their wish list, and then all that pricing is automatically downloaded onto the screen from our database. And there's even, as Sean mentioned today, about how they're using this complication insurance now. We can even include complication insurance along with the OR fees, anesthesia fees, implants if they're involved, the surgeon's fees. They can even choose to schedule a consultation after they see the pricing, and then they can even get pre-approval with care credit when they see this pricing. But the beauty of this is they've gotten all this information, they've gotten that instant gratification of pricing, and my office staff hasn't had to run around and tabulate a price, to get them an estimate. They were able to do it automatically. That's what's so important about this. And then in addition to them seeing the price on the screen, an email is generated and automatically sent to both the patient and to my office. And this is an example of the email. And in that email, it shows the patient's name, shows the patient's email address, the patient's phone number, a little bit of customization, shows our office logo, and of course it shows the estimated cost. Now, I want to be clear about what the estimated cost means. That doesn't mean that if you come in, it's going to be different, there's a bait and switch. If the person who submitted this wish list comes in and they truly are a candidate for this procedure, that will be the exact cost. That will be the accurate cost because we have a fee schedule. Like a lot of people, even in the medically necessary services realm, you have a fee schedule, so you keep to that. We upload that fee schedule into our database. So the patient, when they come in, if they truly are a candidate for that procedure, that's what they will pay. We just say estimated so that we have a little wiggle room in case they're really not a candidate for that. We don't want anybody to get upset. I just don't want to make it clear that in many cases, that's exactly what they will pay. So I've showed you how patients can come to our website, submit a wish list. We've engaged them. We've gotten their contact information. But you don't want to just stop there. You want to re-engage them. And so this is really cool. So we go back to that same email that both the patient and my office staff get. The patient's already seen the pricing, but let me show you some other things on this email. There's a promotional video link to encourage them to come back to my website to watch a little video about our practice, about how great our practice is. And then there's also a link that's specific to that procedure they submitted a wish list for. So in this particular example, it was for lip augmentation with filler. So we have a link to bring them back to the website to watch a video on lip augmentation. But even cooler than that, since this is a non-surgical service, we show them a link to bring them back to the website to purchase that non-surgical service. So I know you're thinking, oh, I'm not a cosmetic surgeon, this doesn't apply to me. That's not true. If you're a surgery center that offers bariatric services, you might have bariatric supplements that you sell to patients. You can sell that online. If you have x-rays in your facility, you have labs, those are non-surgical services you absolutely could sell online through a price estimator on your site. So let's say a consumer clicks on one of these links, they're brought back to my website. Like I said, it was lip augmentation. They can share that link again. These are called deep links. I'll get to that more in a minute. They can watch this video. They can see that I do a dental block before my lip injections. They can see I use a blunt cannula to minimize bruising. They can, again, look at before and after photos. But then we give them the opportunity to click on this to purchase, and they can actually do the check. They log into their existing account. They then click on the checkout button, and they enter their credit card information. And we haven't had to refer them to any other third-party website. They're not going to PayPal. This is all still within my existing website, and they can purchase that right there on the page. It's very cool. Now, let me quickly review all these different, I'm talking about how it's important to use price transparency and lead generation together, but let me tell you about all the different leads that we just generated in those examples. So obviously the first one, we generated a lead when a consumer submitted a wish list to check pricing. And then after they see the pricing, they can then choose to schedule a consultation. And so that's another lead because it either redirects them to the online booking portal that you have on your website, or it just sends the office staff an email saying this person wants to book a consultation. That's one lead. And then also if they purchase something, then you're not only generating leads, you're actually generating dollars. But what's really neat is that let's say they put something in their cart and then they abandon it. Well, just like Amazon, they get an email reminder saying, hey, you left something in your cart. And in this example, they left Botox in their cart. And you give them a link to bring them back to your website to then give them the opportunity to purchase that. But even if they don't purchase it, it's still all right because this same email goes to the office staff and shows the patient's name, the patient's phone number, and the patient's email address, another lead. Now, we are able to keep track of all these, everybody's talking about outcomes measures and data, and we can keep track of all this. We show where all the patients are coming from. We can see how many unique visitors are submitting wish lists. We can see how many consult requests we've had, and we can even see how many abandoned carts we've had. So we're keeping track of all this, and we can even see how many phone calls we've had through the price estimator on our website. So I did a study, and I'll tell you about the study in just a second as far as where you can find it online, but we did do a study that got published in a peer-reviewed journal, and it was basically the study was we posted 104 procedures on my website and a price estimator on my website my first year in San Francisco with no marketing to supplement it. And in that first year, I had 412 wish lists from 208 unique individuals. So I was excited. I had 208 leads that I didn't have before. Now let's dive into those 208 leads. Well, 17.8% of them came in for a consultation, but you may be more focused on the 82.2% that did not come in for a consultation. But that's okay. That means they saw the price, they realized it was out of their budget, or maybe they didn't have the money right now, so they didn't come in and waste time on a consult for themselves or waste our time. They just said, all right, I'll hold off. But that's all right also because we still captured all their contact information, and then we can then send out a monthly email newsletter, and those are 12 additional touch points throughout the year. So if they ever do get the money, they'll come back in. They're going to take the path of least resistance and go to the doctor whose email is sitting in their inbox. And you'll see in a second how that really does happen. But let's go back to the 17.8%. So of that 17.8%, 62% of those people who came in did book a procedure, and it was on average a little over $4,000 per procedure. And we did find that there was a halo effect. So what I mean by halo effect is of that 82.2% of people that submitted a wish list during that first year, some of them did eventually come in for a consult, and to the tune of 2.8% came in either like in the second year for a consult. Now you may say 2.8% is not that much, but look at this. All 100% of them booked a procedure. These were all people who were serious at the time. You maybe didn't get that instant gratification of them submitting a wish list and then coming in and getting a procedure, but because I continued to email them once a month, and they could of course unsubscribe to the emails if they wanted, but since they were getting those monthly email newsletters, once they finally got that tax refund check or whatever, they were finally ready to come in, and they were serious, and they booked on the spot. So you may think that, well, whether they're price aware or not, when they come in, they're ready to book, it doesn't matter. That's not really true. So as I mentioned, the price aware patients that came in, 62.2% of them booked a procedure, but then the patients who came in for a consult that were not price aware, only 44% of them booked. So if you do the math, that shows you that price aware patients are 41% more likely to book a procedure than non-price aware patients. So it just means you're spending much more efficient time in the exam room for those patients who are going to make the transition to the operating room. So as I mentioned, in that first year, didn't have any advertising. Well, what happens when you do introduce advertising into the mix? Well, instead of getting 412 wish lists, we got over 4,100 wish lists, and instead of 208 leads, we got 2,100 leads. Now, the point of this is not that advertising works, but the point is that if you let people know you have pricing on your website, that does generate a lot of traffic because everybody wants to know how much something costs. But all you would be getting is traffic. If you didn't have something like a price estimator or a way to get that contact information, you would kind of have nothing to show for your advertising dollars. So that's what's so critical about this is that when you have a way to convince a patient to leave their contact information, it's very beneficial to you. So what do you do with all those leads? I went from 200 to over 7,000 leads in 4 years. So first and foremost, my office staff follows up with all of them. And it's not as bad as you think. They're not, when they're calling them now, they're not having the pricing discussion. It's just, do you want to book a consult or not? It's pretty simple. And if they don't answer the call, then that might have been just a price shopper, and you've automatically weeded out that price shopper. You've automatically taken care of that and freed up your office staff time. Now, the Cleveland Clinic uses a similar platform, and they don't actually follow up with anybody as far as a phone call. They just have them automatically sync into their email marketing database, and it can sync into MailChimp, Constant Contact, Campaign Monitor, MyEmma, Infusionsoft, whatever one, that covers a lot of those email marketing platforms that allow you to, for free actually, you can capture all those leads, and then if you start to send out monthly email newsletters, that's when those companies start to charge you. But it's kind of cool that you can actually capture all the leads for free. So let me tell you about one of my most recent email newsletters that I sent out. Again, I sent them out once a month. I'm not too annoying about it. And we sent it out to over 7,000 email addresses. We had 3 online bookings. This is measured within 12 hours of sending out that e-blast. 3 online bookings, 27 wish lists, 22 were brand new leads, 5 were re-engaged consumers. And this is the part that I'm most proud about, that no emails were marked as spam. All right, you can't get that if you buy a list. And I don't actually know what else you can send out that many emails and nobody marks it as spam. These people knew that when they submitted the wish list on my website and they checked that box saying that I was going to contact you for follow-up, they knew that they signed up for this. Now, 0.58% of them unsubscribed, which is like not much at all, obviously. But nobody marked it as spam, which I'm very proud of. It just means this is something they knew they were doing, they were conscious of it, and they were okay with it. We had over 20% open rate, 12% click rate, which I'm also proud of. Third thing you can do with all those leads is own your marketing. Now, what I mean by that is, and I don't know if any of you do any Facebook advertising or Google AdWords, but why do we advertise with Facebook? Well, because they have 2 billion people using their platform. But when you advertise with Facebook, you're really not being advertised to 2 billion or 4 billion eyes. What's really going on is when you do advertise with Google AdWords or Facebook, you segment out your market, your demographics. So this is a real ad that I didn't actually purchase on Facebook, but I just wanted to show you, for example, that when you're setting up an ad with Facebook, that you first figure out your demographic, and is it for cosmetic surgery, you would look at people that are interested in fitness and wellness and health and clothing and things like that. It's interesting, Facebook doesn't have a category of just cosmetic surgery, so you can't actually find people who are specifically interested in cosmetic surgery, so you have to find people that are approximately interested in something that you might mean that they're interested in cosmetic surgery. So that's the first problem, is you can't actually find the exact demographic you're looking for, just approximately. And then the second thing is, you pick the age group that you're looking for, and then you also figure out the region that you want to advertise to. So when I picked a certain region within San Francisco, it showed that my estimated reach was anywhere from 3,500 to 9,600 people. Well, I just told you that I already have 7,000 email addresses in my database. So not only do I not need Facebook, because one, they don't really have the same people that I'm looking for. I don't know if these are the same demographic I'm looking for. I know that they're interested in health and wellness, but I don't know if they're interested in cosmetic surgery. I know the people that I have in my database absolutely are interested in cosmetic surgery because they submitted a wish list on my website checking the pricing for cosmetic surgery. So I know my database is better, and the best part about it is I can send out that monthly email newsletter, advertise, remarket to those consumers as often as I want. I don't have to pay Facebook every time I do it, because after I advertise with Facebook, it's not like they give me the email addresses of those people. I mean, so I've got my email addresses, and so that's why I talk about owning your marketing, is that you can do so much with a legitimate, good database of emails of patients that are interested in your services. The other thing I would want to talk about with all those leads is that regardless of what field you're in, DPC or surgery center or ortho or whatever, that we all have a website that has that contact submission form. So under that contact page, there's a place for people to ask questions. And so I was noticing that it seemed like all the questions I was getting through that contact page were people asking about pricing. So I looked at the stats, and I found that I had 74 people who submitted website inquiries. This is over a period of time. And then at that same period of time, 2,700 people had submitted wish lists to our price estimator to check pricing. So when I looked at those website inquiries, which aren't very many, I agree, over 90% of them were people asking about pricing. The rest of them were asking about, can I book a consultation? We have an online booking portal, so I don't know why they didn't use that. 2 points I want to make here. One, you could argue that if I didn't have an automated price estimator, since most of the website inquiries were all people asking about price, I could have potentially had 2,700 people submitting questions and inquiries through our website contact form asking about price. But you know what you have to do when you get those emails? You have to respond to them manually and either explain to them all the pricing information, or you have to email them back and say, well, we don't give pricing without a consult or something, which just aggravates patients. So that's super annoying. I mean, I wouldn't even want to work in my office if I had to manually respond to that many emails about people asking for pricing. So that's the second benefit, is it's great for the office staff to have these pricing inquiries, which I know we all have pricing inquiries at the front desk, depending on what the insurance they have or not, or what their deductible is. Everybody's got these pricing inquiries, and so this is a great way to automatically respond to all those. Again, just continuing on with the office staff, you have that automated instant response system, and I'm going to get more into the phone, email, and social media as far as responding to pricing inquiries. It's a great way to document your price estimates, so that way when the patient comes in and is like, oh, I didn't know about that, you can just pull up their email wish list and say, this is the email you got with all the breakdown of the pricing. It's a great way to avoid misquoting prices over the phone. Maybe the front office staff might forget something about an implant, so that won't happen with this. And it's a great, like I mentioned earlier, it's a great way to more efficiently answer phone calls because you're not really talking about pricing anymore. It's just, do you want to come in or not? And it's also, last but not least, it's a great way to stop wasting time on price shoppers. And by the way, not everybody's asking about price as a price shopper, but some of them are. Some of them are people that are just generally entering a price and they're ready to make a decision. So another benefit is the SEO aspect of it. So whether you know it or not, Google is monitoring all of our websites. Even the worst performing website, Google is monitoring all of our websites to see how long people spend on your website. Because if the longer they spend on your website, that's a signal to Google that people are finding what they need on Google, on your website. And if they're finding what they need on your website, that means for Google, that means that you've got good content on your website. And if you've got good content, then Google will actually increase your organic ranking when somebody's searching for services that you offer. I'm not talking about AdWords. I'm just saying that if Google gets those signals that people are finding what they like on your website, you'll come up higher up in the rankings. And so this is really cool about having a price estimator on your website. What we found is that people were staying on our site twice as long. People were browsing the site twice as long as far as the number of pages. They were staying there. They weren't jumping off and just leaving and going to another website. They were browsing 33% more pages. It was very beneficial to have that price estimator there. And that helps us with our organic search rankings on Google. I don't know the whole Google algorithm, but I know that part makes sense. The other thing is, as I was showing you those different links, I call them deep links whenever on those videos when you could see that link or where you could bring the patient back to that specific procedure. All of that is also crawlable by Google, and I apologize if I'm getting out in the weeds, but Google sees all that, and it's actually additional benefit to your website to have a price estimator there because of all those links there. It looks like you have more content on your website. So when you compare this to a pricing menu, just a static menu on your website, obviously one of the main benefits of a price estimator is the consumer doesn't see pricing until they provide their contact information. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is that in this particular example, this is another plastic surgeon, they have a procedure on there, fat transfer to the face, and it's a range of 2,500 to 6,500. It's not very useful. It's a huge range. Now, one of the things I've written about in blog posts and things like that is that I think that one of the reasons, this may not apply to everybody, but one of the reasons people put ranges is because they feel like they're never going to have the opportunity to talk to you more about pricing, so they just provide you with all the data, as big of a range as possible to kind of encompass all possible scenarios. Well, that's not, it goes from a point of trying to be helpful to not very helpful information because it's not really actionable anymore. And that's the thing is that if people are having to submit wish list and you get their contact information, then you get an opportunity to follow up with them and educate them. So I think that's one of the reasons people provide these huge ranges just because, well, I'm probably never going to hear from this person. They're going to look at this website and move on, where that's not an issue with the price estimator because you capture their contact information for follow-up. Another thing I've noticed is that patients have told me they really like how we stratify out the cost. Not everybody has to do this, but we break this down, and as Sean mentioned about with the cosmetic insurance, for that complication insurance, we can include that as a part of the breakdown. And one of the things I was talking about, that Sean was talking about, is that they act as a Sherpa to kind of get these patients through the system. That's another benefit of getting these patients to provide their contact information, because it's not just a matter of calling them and saying, hey, do you want to come in for a consult? But it's your first opportunity, that first touch point for you to help be the Sherpa for that patient through the healthcare system and to navigate them through that system. And you can't do that if you don't have their name and email address or phone number. Another benefit of having a price estimator on your site, or at least providing pricing, is this person wrote a Yelp review for me, obviously a 5-star review, I wouldn't have shown it to you otherwise, but she specifically mentioned the price estimator, that was one of the things that drew her to my website. Now, if you just list your pricing on your website, yeah, you'd get that too, but it's just funny to me because the way she phrased this, it was as if I solicited her to write this, and even maybe that I wrote the review. I didn't, but I couldn't have written it any better or more self-serving than the way she wrote it. So I was very pleased with that. But anyway, that kind of price transparency, people love it. I mentioned that our statistics that I mentioned to you, that was published in a peer-reviewed journal. You can check it out. If you Google Annals Plastic Surgery Price Transparency, it's open source. You don't have to pay for it. You can look at all the stats that I just mentioned. I did refer to online purchasing. I just want to go over it a little bit more in depth, that allowing people to purchase non-surgical services on your website is a great additional revenue. This is from my practice. We've had over 300 online purchases that totaled over $100,000. This might have been while we were sleeping. It might have been while the office was closed. I don't know, but it was great to have that additional revenue. And those patients do show up because they've paid for it online. They come and get their product or whatever it is. Actually, the other thing I want to mention is that we don't actually even discount typically. Those prices that I just showed you, or that total amount we made, those really aren't even discounted prices, which surprised me. It's kind of like movie tickets when you buy online. They're not discounted. You still have to go to the movie, but it's the convenience of buying online. People feel the same way about non-surgical services. Now, this example here, we did discount this. This was for Cyber Monday. I just wanted to test it out, see how effective it was. And it was written up in the Cosmetic Surgery Times, and we made $13,600 in a 24-hour period just from online sales. Again, this was more discounted, but it was kind of fun to be able to take, I just didn't want Amazon having all the fun with some Cyber Monday. Anyway, so if you have price transparency, everybody wants to know pricing. That's one of the most important things that you can market about your practice. Sure, you're board certified, sure you're this, sure you're that, but marketing your price transparency is a great arrow in your quiver. Because the thing is, you don't want to just drive a bunch of traffic to your website because you can't follow a click. You really need to give people a reason to leave their contact information. So one of the things I do is I mentioned pricing is available on all types of advertising. Whatever advertising you do, whether it's print, online, whatever, mention that you have pricing available, and that will drive a lot of traffic, and then those people submit wish lists, and then you'll get their contact information. The other thing I found with a price estimator is it's an SEO truth serum. What I mean by that is that let's say your web developer is saying that we're driving tons of traffic to your website. And if you have a price estimator on your website, then that means a lot of people are going to be submitting wish lists because everybody wants to know how much something costs. So if somebody's telling you you're getting a lot of traffic to your website, but you're not getting any wish lists with your price estimator, that means that nobody's coming to your website. So it's a way to call them out, call their bluff. So continuing on as far as every piece of advertising, there's a doctor in Southern California that he does have a price estimator on his website, but he makes it very clear on the homepage. He's got a button right there, get a quote now. You can't miss it. They click on that, it brings them to the price estimator on another page of his website. Now, here's a blog post that I wrote about breast augmentation, and I want to make a couple points here. So people read about breast augmentation. It's natural that the next thing they want to do is know how much it costs. So we have a link to bring them to our pricing page. This is the way we used to do it. But the thing is that now they get the pricing page, they have to scroll through all the procedures to find breast augmentation to read more about it. This is what I've been referring to before as far as the deep links, these links that bring the patient specifically back to that page, not just the pricing page, but that specific procedure. So what you do is then you put that deep link in that, at the end of that article about breast augmentation, and it brings them back to that specific procedure. So now the patient isn't having to scroll through and look for it. Another way to say it is that the whole purpose of the internet is to reduce the number of clicks from motivation to conversion, whatever that conversion is. You want to reduce the number of clicks, you want to reduce the number of scrolling. So that's why deep links are so effective. They're great for blog posts. So whatever your blog post is about, it's about back pain or something, you bring them, and there's a specific procedure you're talking about for back pain, you would give them a link to bring them to that specific procedure, not make them go to the pricing page and then try and find the procedure you're talking about. The other way it's great is if any of you use Google AdWords, and the whole idea with Google AdWords, it's the top 2 or 3 ads you see at the top of a Google search page and the ads you see on the right. And let's say you're saying, cost-effective back pain treatment. That would be your Google AdWord, and then you would have that deep link in that Google AdWord, bring them back to that specific procedure on your pricing page. Now, I do realize that a lot of you in here have static pricing pages on your website. You just have the procedures and the prices right there. And as I alluded to before, one of the problems with that is that consumers see those prices and they're kind of out there, but you don't know who's looking at it. You don't have any way of capturing their contact information unless they follow up with you. So we have another doctor that we work with that has a surgery center. He has, and so for example, on his website, he's talking about breast reduction. And you'll see that he's got an average cost there, or a range, and he wanted to start using our platform, but if the price is just kind of hanging out there, people aren't going to have the incentive to submit a wish list and provide their contact information to find out the cost of a breast reduction because they've got an approximate idea of how much it is. So you could say, oh, well, we'll just remove this page, but you don't want to do that because this is a page that maybe has been linked to from a blog post or somehow it's been linked to, and it's got good SEO, so you don't want to delete this page. So what we do is we delete those numbers, and then we replace it with a button that the consumers can click on, but instead of bringing that consumer to the pricing page, we bring them to the page specifically about breast reduction. I just noticed that all my examples were naked women, and I apologize. It was not on purpose. Anyway, so it's a great way for you to maintain your SEO, keep those pages, don't delete those pages, don't revamp your whole website, just cover up those prices that you're showing, provide a link to that page on your price estimator, and that way the consumer checks pricing, you get a lead out of it. You can also insert price estimators into your Facebook desktop page. Just another opportunity to get people. And so as far as additional ways of letting people know about your pricing, this is a medical minute that I do in San Francisco. It's 60 seconds long, medical minute, sorry. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about, don't worry about the audio, but look at the bottom, it says check procedure pricing at Pacific Heights Plastic Surgery. So this is an example of, I'm advertising, I'm telling people about my website, I'm driving traffic to my website. But think about it, if I didn't have a price estimator on my website for people to submit a wish list with their contact information, all those ad dollars would have all just been going to traffic. I might not have gotten any obvious leads. And I can always tell when these medical minutes run because I get 15 to 20 leads right off the bat. It's just all of a sudden in the middle of the day, at 2:40 in the afternoon, I get 10 to 15, 20 leads. I know what's going on. You can also incorporate price estimators into trade organization websites, as the American Society of Plastic Surgeons. They have a Find a Surgeon page, and so if you're looking at a particular surgeon in Beverly Hills, he's got a price estimator on his website. So the point being is that no matter where you have a presence, you can put this price estimator on Facebook, on your own website, on a trade organization you're a part of. People can come to any of those places, submit wish lists through your price estimator, and then you get a lead out of it. And then the trade organization gets the credit for feeding you that lead because of the traffic to their website. Another example is one of our esteemed Illinois chapter of the FMMA, Prairie Surgicare. They've got a price estimator on their website. And of course, they're not offering cosmetic procedures. It's all things related to spine surgery. And the consumer, again, can go through. They can look at, so for example, this is SI joint fusion. They can see this video of how Dr. Kuby does the SI joint fusion. And these are all prices and procedures that were uploaded by Colleen at their office. So it's a great opportunity for them to generate leads through their website as well. The bottom line is that everybody asks about price. So you just want to make it as easy as possible for them to find out price through all channels and capture their contact information in the process. So I've mentioned already, they can check pricing through your website. This is something I haven't talked about yet. So let's say somebody calls your office, like always occurs, and asks about how much something costs. Well, there's actually an accompanying app that my office staff pulls out. Well, they don't pull out of their pocket because they probably already have their phone on the desk. But they pull out their iPhone and they open up the app and they find out what the consumer is interested in when they call, and they scroll down, they tap on that procedure, and then they ask the consumer for the name, email address, and phone number. So they submit the wish list right on the app, and the pricing appears on the screen so they can then tell the consumer the cost over the phone because we've already captured their contact information. And it's funny because we do sometimes, very rarely, but we sometimes get some pushback, say, oh, I just want to know the price, I don't want to give you my contact information. But we can blame it on the app then. We can say, oh, well, the app doesn't work unless you put in contact information. And people totally like, okay, if the app says I got to do it, I got to do it. So people will totally be okay with that. We put in their contact info, we tell them the pricing, and then we remind them that they'll also get an email with their pricing there, and to remember to check their spam folder if they don't see it in their inbox. I don't know how many of you are posting videos of your procedures on or your services on YouTube, but it takes no time to post some video on YouTube before somebody asks how much is that service or procedure you're talking about. Now, you could just respond to this person and say it's this amount of money, but I don't know who CFlow is. I don't get anything out of that just by telling her the price. So what we do is we encourage these patients to go to our website and check out the pricing for that procedure. We even give them the link to go to that specific procedure so they don't have to search very far. And then they submit a wish list and we get their contact information. Now, if you think that patients really won't climb that hurdle, it's not true. So this is a post that I put on Instagram. And this person right here, Tina Marie Gets Fit, she wanted to know how much something cost. So now we can go to her Instagram page and find out who she is, but I'm not going to contact her through her Instagram page because that's a little bit stalkerish. So what I'd rather is encourage her to go to our website, check pricing, and they're willing to do this. And here she is. She submits a wish list. with, those are all the different procedures she's interested in. And sure enough, we now know Tina Marie Gets Fit is this person with this email address and this phone number. So patients are willing to provide their contact information to get good pricing data, because they're tired of getting averages. They know that's not very helpful. It's not very actionable. And that's kind of really what we're going after here is what can we provide that is actionable? And if you're selling something online, then that's actionable. Think about it. You can't sell claims data online. You can't sell ranges online. It just doesn't work that way. If you can only sell accurate pricing online, or accurate pricing for services online. So in conclusion, I feel like I've found the silver bullet for lead generation. There's no better carrot to capture contact info than pricing. You can generate a huge database of leads. And with an e-commerce platform, you can capture dollars, not just leads. And static menus can cost tens of thousands of dollars without generating any leads. And so money can be better spent. And so one of the things I want you to ask yourself is like, would you really be worse off with having tens of thousands of leads of consumers that are interested in the service that you provide? And I just made up 10,000 because I figured if I made 7,000 in 4 years and I'm just a solo practicing doctor, surgery centers and the doctors that are maybe working with those surgery centers, if all of them have price estimators, they're all generating these huge number of leads. They can all send out monthly email newsletters when it's like, when it's colon health month, when it's back pain month. I'm making up these months. But when it's hip rotator cuff month, I don't know. But you can send out these specific email newsletters to all these people that are interested in those services because they've submitted wish list checking pricing for them. So I think everybody can be better off having a bunch of email newsletters, email database. Anyway, the other thing that a lot of doctors will push back on, they'll say, oh, well, it's too complicated to show, and this may not apply to everybody here, but it's too complicated to show different types of pricing. Patients don't understand. And what I explain to them is that healthcare.gov, even though we don't maybe like the underlying bill behind it, the ACA, and maybe the healthcare.gov didn't work when it first came out, the point now is that healthcare.gov shows plans for bronze, silver, gold, platinum in multiple states, multiple regions, multiple policies. They show the out-of-pocket deductible. They show the out-of-pocket maximum. They show the drug benefits. If the federal government can make a website like that, then doctors can show different pricing for different procedures. It's not that complicated. Again, I understand most of you, I'm preaching to the choir. But one last thing I want to show you that's really cool is that we've had enough people provide pricing into our database that we've now got big data. So if you're a doctor or your office staff like Colleen at Prairie Surgicare did, she logs in, she uploads her procedures to the back end of our platform, she uploads those procedures and pricing. Now we have enough data in our database that you can see how your pricing compares across your region. So for example, a doctor in Florida that does carpal tunnel, when they upload their pricing, they can see how their prices compare across the US, region, and state. A doctor in Pennsylvania that uploads pricing for a lumbar epidural, and this is just for the doctor, the consumers can't see this. The doctor in Pennsylvania that uploads lumbar epidural pricing, they can see how their pricing compares across the US, region, and state. And same thing with the radiology facility in Texas, they can see how their pricing compares with lower extremity ultrasound. But it gets cooler. The more data you get, the doctor in Texas that does upper GI or EGDs, they can see how their pricing compares across the US, region, state, and even within a 15-mile radius of where they practice. And even cooler, if you get even more data, a doctor in Oklahoma that uploads pricing for arthroscopic ACL repair can see how their pricing compares across the US, region, state, within a 15-mile radius, and even within their own zip code. So you can really just see how your pricing, I'm not saying lower your prices when you see that, I'm just saying it gives you an idea of how your pricing sits in the competitive landscape. Same thing with DPC. If you're a doctor in Oklahoma that's offering DPC services for adult monthly membership, you can see how your pricing compares across the US all the way down to your zip code because there's enough data in the system. A doctor in plastic surgeon in Southern California, you can see how the pricing for breast aug compares across from the US down to your local zip code. I mean, that's big data. That's the perfect example of it in action. So anyone can do this with their existing website. You can just ask me how. I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming back for the afternoon session, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
How or who can we make this happen?
So I guess I've done a good job of not making this too commercial, because, but it's a platform that I developed, and so we have different pricing tiers. If you contact me, we can get you set up with an account. We've actually created accounts for a lot of the doctors here because you have your pricing online already. Yes?
So you have that platform with the price estimator, that's your technology,
Right. So for facilities like ASCs, it's $2.99 per month. No setup fee, no other hidden fees. I mean, if it's a platform about price transparency, I've got to be transparent about the pricing. But it's $2.99 per month, and it's a little less if you prepay for 6 months, a little less if you prepay for a year. And that you can put the widget as in many places you want: Facebook, your own website, your trade organization. That's for surgery centers, bigger facilities. For individual specialists, it's $149 a month, a little less if you prepay for 6 months or 12 months. And then for DPC, it's $99 a month.
So you also have data that will tell us estimated pricing for, let's say we have 100 different procedures. There's some data that will tell us in our area of the country where we should price those things based on.
Right. So and I'm not suggesting that you manipulate your pricing based on what you see. When you log in and you upload your procedure and your pricing, yes, you will see if the data is there, you'll see how your pricing compares across the U.S. region, state, depending on how much data is there. You will see how your pricing compares. I'm not suggesting that you change anything based on that, but there's something to go by for sure. And if now the only issue is if you upload so this is actually pretty cool. I'm going to give you an example. I don't want to give the impression this is only for cosmetic procedures, but it's just what I know, and I can give you a good example. If a doctor uploads tummy tuck and another doctor uploads abdominoplasty, obviously they're both the same thing. We have a proprietary way of linking those, so the data is really good. Like every nuance or variation of a procedure is linked, and all of that pricing data is collated, and that's what you'll see. But if you come up with some procedure, like plastic surgeons are so egocentric. Plastic surgeons, they'll upload a procedure that they made up that's named after them, and they don't understand why there's not averaging for that procedure. Well, it's like, because you're the only one who's doing it. Nobody else does it. That probably should tell you something else. Over the whole database? It's like, it's probably, oh God. I haven't looked at it in a while. It's probably over about 20,000 now. Yeah, we have a lot of data points. Obviously, it's not going to be as strong in certain regions and certain areas, but I showed you where it's pretty strong already for, arthroscopy. It's stronger for procedures, not just plastic surgery. It's, things outside of plastics. That's probably the take-home point. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got a question. Good presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
How did you initially get people to go to your website, to click on the tool and read their information? What was the best type of advertising that got them to their mission?
So one thing I've learned after being in Baton Rouge and now San Francisco is advertising is very local, what works and what doesn't work. So in San Francisco, to drive people to my personal website was blogging. So that first year when I didn't really have any marketing dollars, I did a lot of blogging, which I blog 3 times a week. It's kind of annoying, but it really works because Google recognizes that. Obviously, Google wants to make money, but they realize if you're putting that much time into blogging 3 times a week, they put a lot of credit. They give a lot of legitimacy to that. So by blogging, have a lot of good, fresh content on your website, because that's a way of always updating your website by adding new blogs. They don't necessarily think you're going to be adding new photos all the time, but if you're adding new blogs all the time, that increases how Google looks at the benefit of what Google looks at your website. And so that really helped me with blogging. Once I started getting more ad dollars, then I started doing the 60-second medical minute bit in San Francisco. The reason that's so beneficial in San Francisco is because they bring the talent down from the TV station, so it looks like you're part of the news. It looks like they're doing a story on you. It's totally an advertisement. It is. But it doesn't look like that. So that was beneficial in San Francisco. And I think in most places, Google AdWords is really beneficial. But you got to get traction and have the money to do that first. So to start out, when I didn't have the money, it was blogging. And that's got people to my website. And no matter how bad your website you think your website is, you've got more traffic on your website than somebody else has sending people to your website. Does that make sense? They're going to find you quicker than like the ASPS website for plastic surgeons. It's good. It gets a lot of traffic, but probably in your local area, they're probably going to find your website first. That's my point.
Did you build your website from scratch, or was there something out there already being used similar with by other plastic surgeons? And if you built it from scratch, what did it cost?
Okay, so my website, my private practice website, Pacific Heights Plastic Surgery, that's just a WordPress platform. That's like anybody can access that. I mean, that can range anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 depending on the company you go with. The actual widget that I'm talking about, that's the separate company that I have, and that widget can go into anybody's website. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but
You said you had no marketing cost, but you did. I'm just, what did it cost you to build that website that just drives business to your procedure?
right. So my website was about $7,500.
Nice.
That was with WordPress, and it's not really good. I think actually, you know what? This is interesting. Something I just recently learned, that I need to pay GoDaddy more because that's who's hosting my website. I need to pay them more so that my website will load faster, because Google really docks you if your website doesn't open quickly enough. So I need to pay for a more expensive plan with GoDaddy. So the point I'm making is that it's not just about your website. It's about the way it's built and the way it's hosted and all these words that I didn't understand a few years ago. So hosting and how much you pay that company is very important, how quickly your website loads, and Google notices that.
I have a question.
Sure.
You had mentioned that when you took over the practice, you did not have any online presence. I'm curious, with your SEO, you said that your marketing campaign consisted of 3 blogs a week. I'm curious, at what point or how long did it take for you to notice your domain authority, or otherwise known as your quality score, increase so that your organic search, I guess there was a surplus in that? At what time frame did that?
Sure.
How long did that take?
And just to clarify, I didn't say I had no web presence. There was a website. That doctor did have, whose practice I took over, he did have a website, but there was...
Right, but there was no SEO. That's
Exactly,
right.
exactly. I just want to make
it.
sure. So that's a great question. So but it requires a second part to the answer. One of the things I'd highly recommend, regardless of what the name of your practice is right now, come up with a name that's a location-based name for your facility or your practice, like Oklahoma Surgery Center. That's a great location-based name. When I took over the practice, it was named after the previous doctor, and his website was named after him. I didn't name the new website JonathanKaplanMD.com because nobody knows who Jonathan Kaplan is. Believe it or not, there was 8 plastic surgeons in my building, and again, they're also egocentric. They all named the practice after themselves along with the website. Nobody named their website a location-based name, which Google really likes. I was the first one to name it Pacific Heights Plastic Surgery. I couldn't believe that nobody had thought of that. They're all in Pacific Heights. Nobody ever thought of that. So because I named it Pacific Heights Plastic Surgery,
It helped your local SEO.
it helped my local SEO, and within about 8 months, you could type in plastic surgeon Pacific Heights, which is a natural thing for people to type in. You know, Jonathan Kaplan's not a natural thing for people to type in. Plastic surgeon Pacific Heights, I'm all over the place because it's the name of my practice. So that would be my recommendation. Regardless of what the name of your facility, your practice is, get a domain name that's a local name, and it can forward to your existing website. You don't even need a new website.
So the answer to my question
8
is
months.
8 months? Got it.
Sorry, thanks. But I think you understand why that answer was necessary.
No, yeah. I think a lot of, especially doctors, when it comes to the SEO or your online presence, they don't realize how important. It's like selling shoes, but not having the actual word shoes on your website.
Right.
So
that's
in this particular situation, you have doctors that are selling services or procedures, but no one can find you because,
right.
there's none of that information on your website.
And I apologize if I'm getting out in the weeds about some of this Google talk and everything, but unfortunately you have to know about it. Even if you don't do all these things yourself, even if you're not running your own Google AdWords campaign, you need to know about it just so that when the web developer's talking to you, you know if they're kind of blowing smoke up your behind or not. Any other, yes, sir.
When you started your presentation, you're talking about being a plastic surgeon. You've been doing this for a very long time. As you move through your presentation, you were talking about some services that were not plastic surgery. Were those patients, were those physicians in the free market mode? Did they convert because they saw you had something that was really going? Were they already there and didn't know how to do it? Tell me why it works elsewhere other than plastic surgery.
Right. So no, you're right. So some of those doctors that I presented, they're kind of making that transition and having feet in both pools between insurance and cash pay. There's also concierge primary care, DPC, functional medicine that are using this. There's surgery centers that are doing this. So it's not just plastic surgeons anymore. So it is people who are they're actually part of the FMMA, doing the whole free market thing, and they are making that transition and keeping, again, still doing some insurance, but also getting into that realm.
So along with this level of marketing, you more or less have to be in a free market mode to be able to make it work.
No, so that's kind of one of the things I was talking about at the beginning, is that there's so many more consumers now with high deductible health plans. So you could be taking insurance all day long, but they're still paying $5,000 out of their pocket before their insurance kicks in. So if you offer medically necessary services that are less than $5,000, like a colonoscopy or an EGD or labs or anything less than $5,000, you can still use something like this because consumers are still having to pay out of pocket for those things before their insurance kicks in. So yeah, they might be completely insurance and just dealing with patients that are have high deductible health plan. Yes, sir.
Do you think there's any watering down of the concepts of transparent pricing if you're selling you access to your pricing with your patient's data?
So I think that, as I demonstrated in one of the examples, is that patients are willing to go to your website and enter their pricing information, enter their contact information, and get pricing. We've seen that. So like when we're on social media, and instead of just telling the person a price and then we refer them to our website, they're willing to go and do it. And then when you look at my email rates, 0.58% of people unsubscribe, nobody marks it as spam. People don't seem to be too bitter about it. They seem to be okay with it, having to put in their contact information, get pricing. And keep in mind, this is an Amazon world. I don't think it's a big deal to ask people for their name, email address, and phone number. Don't ask them for their social security number. Probably don't ask them for their date of birth. But I think asking them for some basic demographic information, they seem to be okay with it because they want to know price and they know they can unsubscribe from the email newsletter if they had to. That's really the only downside, is you get an email newsletter from me once a month. Yes?
I have a question about your platform in particular. Do you guys encrypt the data and the transfer, and does the office access that through a portal, or is it emailed? How do you handle that?
No, so none of this is protected health information. We've already had attorneys look at this. The patient's putting in their name, email address, phone number. There's nothing, no PHI, so nothing has to be encrypted. It's not a HIPAA issue. We've spent a lot of money with lawyers to get that opinion. So no, it's not encrypted because we're not asking anybody for their, what their medical history is. Good question. Yes.
Unrelated to transparency, how do you get Build My Thought out to other specialties, being that you get a primary job as a plastic surgeon every day?
Right. So we send out email newsletters to doctors in other specialties and let them know about this platform. We got this paper published in a peer-reviewed journal, which gives me the opportunity to go and speak about it, but in a constructive, outcomes measures way, rather than just a commercial. And so I speak at the MGMA, talk to doctors that way. I've been to HIMSS and things like that. I mean, because I was able to get a study put out that was published in a peer-reviewed journal, that really gave it a lot of legitimacy. Yes.
As a surgery center that's kind of straddling the transparent bundled pricing while still keeping our BUCA and Medicare contracts, the insurance companies don't let you share your facility rates with the general public. But if a patient contacts us asking what our rate is to figure out an out-of-pocket expense, we're allowed to share that with them. Theoretically, could we use this as a way to share our contracted BUCA rates with patients since they are taking that first step to request information?
Right, that's a great point. So yeah, right now I've seen on y'all's website, y'all have rates listed for just out of pocket, and I've also seen you have rates for, I think, Medicare rates possibly.
We do, and we right now we're just kind of doing averages for our commercial because
Right.
we can't give those exact numbers, so it's within a range, but it'd be great if I can say, hey, you have Blue Cross Blue Shield, your knee scope rate is this, and if you know you're out of pocket, and you can do
And
the
you
math
know what you
yourself.
could even do is you could have a separate price estimator on your site, one that was for just cash pay and one that was just for Blue Cross Blue Shield.
So do you think, I guess my
Legally
question is,
speaking, I would have
could I do
to,
that?
somebody's gonna have to pay a lawyer to
Yeah.
make sure that's okay, but technologically, you totally could do that. And you'd have to pay a lawyer in Florida to do that. Any other great questions, by the way? Anybody else? Well, I unfortunately have to leave early tomorrow morning, so if you do have any questions, please, please, please ask me tonight at dinner or during the cocktail hour. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thanks again to Dr. Smith and Jay, Meg, and the whole AV team. Thanks so much. Thank y'all.